University Press. There's a nice ring to it, actually, so it would have been almost criminal not to start a project that is called Mandela University Press. And then, of course, also the launch of the Mandela University book, which is more or less an account of the university giving to itself and, of course, to its various publics. So we have a program which, of course, if you know Alan Zinn, is measured out by the seconds. So, so we hope we can manage that. So my name is Andre Kiet. I'm the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Engagement and Transformation. I will be doing the directing of the program. We have our chairperson, Ambassador Sibongile Badil, who will be doing the welcoming. Thanks, Chair, for gracing us with your presence. Then we have the Vice Chancellor, who will be doing the two launches in tandem, both the launch of the press and the launch of the book. Then we have Denver doing an overview of the book itself, a music item to follow, and then Nero to say something about the partnership with African Sun Media, and Vern will make some concluding remarks on the University of the Future. We will then, of course, also have our Chancellor, Dr. Geraldine Fraser-Moleketi, here as well to do a message of support, and we also have other members of our Governing Council here, and then we will have a quick question and answer, and then Norba will do the vote of thanks. So this hello extend to those here face-to-face and in this venue, but also to those online as well, but also acknowledging the various editors and authors who have been walking this journey with us for the past few years. There are a number of them present here, VC, Chair and Chancellor, those who have already published in the space, those who have books in the pipeline as well. So, you know, a special acknowledgement to those authors as well, who actually gave a practical then can achieve. So friends, let me not waste any more time, and then I'll ask our Chair of Council, Ambassador Sibongile Badil, to do the official welcome. Can you please help me to welcome her to the stage?
Thank you very much, Professor Kiet, and good evening to every single one of you. Let me do the formal list here. So I'll welcome our Chancellor, Dr. Geraldine Moleketi Fraser-Moleketi. Sorry, Geraldine. These double-barrel names, you know, I always get them wrong. Vice Chancellor, Professor Muthwa. All the Deputy Vice Chancellors, it's always lovely to see you. Our Registrar, Edgar de Kokke. Our Executive Director of Finance, Mr. Mike Monahan. All our Executive Deans and Deputy Deans. Mr. Nerode Bramdor, who's the CEO of the African Sun, and thank you for partnering with us. Vern Harris, always lovely to see you from the Nelson Mandela Foundation, and members of the Mandela University Press, whom the Vice Chancellor will inform us about later when she gives her speech, and all our academic and support staff members who are present this evening, our students and our musicians who will be entertaining us, and every other honored guest. The list is often hard to be totally inclusive. But good evening once again, and really lovely that you've made time to be here today. So it's always an honor for me as Chairperson of Council to welcome you to these occasions when the university is making strides towards the goals that it has set for itself. And in this instance, the launch of the Mandela University Press. July, as you all know, is a very important month for all of us, and especially in the university calendar. It is a month in which we remember the selfless service of and also pay homage to our iconic namesake with a number of activities, and they are going on, of course, throughout the country. And they're all structured around International Mandela Day, including the projects that we have in our townships that neighbor the university. There's one that we're doing with Zidwe Township, the Development Forum. And of course, the launch of the press and the university book this evening is part of that month-long celebration of Madiba, but also the coordinated engagement and transformation portfolio that has taken responsibility across the university to honor Utatu Mandela. So when I look back over my time in the council of the university, and my time does come to an end at the end of August, it seems like yesterday that we all approved the change of the name from Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University to Nelson Mandela University. It was in 2017, I remember very well. And at the time, council members asked both the previous Vice-Chancellor, Professor Derek Swartz, and Professor Sibongile Muthwa, what the name change meant for this university. They jointly produced a think piece, which inter alia made 2 points. And I mention these two because they come to mind this evening. The first is, and I quote, "The measure of the extent to which the university can truly lay claim to the lasting legacy of the international icon after whom we have named this university will depend on decisions that council makes and the broader university community. The university locally, provincially, nationally, continentally, and globally. And so this requires our posture, our outlook, and the decisions that we take to support this outward-looking institution in the service of present and future generations. Very, very clear about where the university intends to focus, which is not just locally, because I remember us having conversations about taking the parochial thing out of the university and making it continental and global. And then the second quote says, "The university will have to situate its path on the less beaten track of a courageous intellectual culture of innovation and change that enrolls the talents and goodwill of all those who commit to take this university to greater heights." So there was also very much an inclusive approach to participating in wherever the university has set its heights. These points come to mind for 2 reasons. First, since then we have witnessed steadily the implementation of initiatives that give meaning to becoming Mandela University. It's an ongoing process. It is evolving. Secondly, the Mandela University Press we are launching this evening is yet another concrete step on this journey. The Mandela University Press is intended to play into the Mandela identity of the university. It is a significant step in the university becoming an engaged, socially embedded university in service of society. But also I think this particular initiative in service of writing, of publishing, of documenting, not only the lived experiences of people who participated in creating Mandela, but also our students whose research that when we give them their doctorates at the end of every graduation and they move away, this also creates a platform for them to share their thought leadership in this area, in what area they've chosen. And so the press has a decisive role in the future trajectory and standing of Nelson Mandela University, and it will have for decades to come. It's taking on a baton that has started in the past. It's not the first time that the Eastern Cape has created a facility like this. It has a history, and the Vice-Chancellor will say more about that. It will open up new avenues to advance our Africanization project, and it will create opportunities to learn from one another and partner with other African scholars and beyond. The intention of having both academic and a community project imprints confirms that our quest for academic excellence and impactful equalizing partnerships with communities are not mutually exclusive. The inauguration of the Mandela University Press this evening, therefore, includes the launch of the book, which is titled Achieving Nelson Mandela University ? And I asked the Vice-Chancellor why the question mark, and she kindly explained that it is a question mark about what are we going to achieve it and how are we going to achieve Nelson Mandela University really in its ambitions to become what it has set itself to do. This publication is written and edited. It's edited by our Vice-Chancellor, Professor Muthwa, and also Dr. Denver Webb. And we will be hearing more about the book in due course. It's very appropriate that we are launching the Mandela University Press with a book that provides a critical reflection on the origins and the evolution and future development of Mandela University. So in this regard, I'd like to congratulate Vice-Chancellor, yourself, and the university, and all of those who worked in this project, those involved in establishing the Mandela University Press, and editors and authors on the establishment of the press and the publication of the book. The Mandela University Press and the book are strong indications that the university is on a firm and decisive path as indeed an engaged, socially embedded university in service of our society. With these few words, thank you once again for joining us this evening, and please enjoy the celebratory milestone event. I thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As always, eloquent and articulate, and of course, it goes without saying that you and your leadership with regard to our governing council and the rest of our council plays a very, very key role in the university, pursuing, achieving Nelson Mandela against the backdrop of providing a stable governance environment for us to do our work in, Chair, so that doesn't go unnoticed and it's acknowledged with all our heartfelt thanks. So colleagues, here it is. I'm inviting Prof. Muthwa to the podium, apologies, to come and launch the Mandela University Press, and of course also launch the book, Achieving Nelson Mandela University ? Please welcome Prof. Muthwa to the podium. Thank you so much, colleagues.
I feel suddenly tall, which is highly unusual for me. I have to say that after all the decades of speaking publicly, I still get a little bit anxious with doing that. I think I need to get that out there because I come from, I'm the descendant of subsistence farmers and of rural people. So we do not stand up and talk. We sit around the fire in conversation. So it is not something that is in my blood that comes easily. And even though I have learned to do it because it's part of the work that I have been asked to do for so many years in this university and before. So thank you very much for just bearing with me as far as that is concerned. So program director, facilitator, I was asked to call you facilitator. Professor Andre Kiet, good evening, my colleague. Let me start by recognizing our Chancellor, Dr. Geraldine Fraser-Muleketi, our Chair of Council, Ambassador Nozipho January Badil, our Vice Chair of Council, Ms. Michelle Mbako, and the entire EXCO of Council that are participating in this event this afternoon. I have seen them here, thank you very much. And then the entire Governing Council of our university, some of them are participating virtually. I want to greet the members of the Mandela University Press Editorial Board, the CEO of African Sun Media, Mr. Nirod Bramdo, who has been mentioned, all colleagues from Mandela University in our different categories, ngokwezigaba zethu, and we belong to this university doing different things and all as important as each other, but we have different categories. So I would like to recognize all those categories without the hierarchy this afternoon. I want to greet the student leadership. Our students, I saw the president of the SRC this evening, Mr. Yiva Makwete, and the entire student contingent that are here and the ones that are participating online. I want to greet the authors of the book who are launching this evening, and I want to greet all honored guests that are here this evening. And I know that we have got a lot of friends of our university that always journey with us. I've seen Professor Lejana also here with us this evening. Thanks, Prof. Thank you, Chairperson of Council, Ambassador Badil, for your warm words of welcome and encouragement as always. I would like to greet you all, those that are joining online as well this evening, and of course, as I've greeted you, that you are sitting here in this venue. We have people joining us from different time zones across the world. For some, it is very early in the morning. For others, it is very late at night. Thank you for taking time to participate in this important event for us. This evening, we are holding double celebration, as it has been mentioned by Professor Kiet and our chair. We are officially launching the Mandela University Press, and we are launching the book, Achieving Mandela University, with a question mark. You will hear more about the book later, but one of the key themes of the book is that our university is on a journey to become a socially embedded university in the service of society. And those that live here, they know what we mean when we say that. Now, about the Mandela University Press. The launch of the Mandela University Press is a historic milestone along the road to achieving Mandela University. It is always a very special moment when a dream becomes a reality. I don't know if Professor Swartz is here, but it has been a long-held dream which became urgent when we became Nelson Mandela University. So I'm very, very grateful that we are launching the press. Why a university press when we live in a country that is already reasonably well endowed with university presses, you might ask us? A good friend of our university and a wise and experienced physicist and social scientist, scholar, and higher education specialist, Professor Ahmed Bauer, set this out very succinctly in 2019, and he said, and I quote from him, "Scholarly publishing is at the very heart of the academic enterprise. It is the mechanism by which the research findings are subjected to peer review, which brings them to the attention of scholars and the public and ultimately embeds them in the global enterprise of knowledge production," and I close quote. To this, I could add that university presses in South Africa are concentrated at historically advantaged, research-intensive universities. And until now, none are located in the Eastern Cape. This is unfortunate if you consider that the Eastern Cape was home to the iconic Lovedale Press. Those of us that went to Nokoleji Remember that very well. The premier publishing house, this was the premier publishing house in South Africa in the 19th and early 20th centuries. One that did so much to advance works in African literature, history, languages, and culture. Advancing the rationale for university presses at a global level, the Association of University Presses describes the value of a university press as follows, and I quote, "University presses are the center of the global knowledge ecosystem. We publish works and perform services that are of vast benefit to the diverse scholarly network, researchers, teachers, students, librarians, and the rest of the university community. Each university press brings a distinctive vision and mission to its work, yet we're all guided by and united in core values of scholarship, which is integrity, diversity, stewardship, and intellectual freedom that define who we are, the work that we do, and the goals to which we aspire," I close quote. Distinguished guests, Nelson Mandela placed huge importance on education as a force for good, as a weapon to change the world, hence our tag. Our intention with the establishment of the MUP, as it has come to be known, is to create a bespoke press that starts off aiming at publishing no more than 5 to 10 books annually. The number of books that it publishes speaks to its purposeful differentiation as it seeks not to compete with other university presses that publish around 20 books per annum and that have several accredited and unaccredited journals or textbooks in their stables. We are confident, though, that Mandela University Press will become a sought-after publisher for works that extends the frontiers of knowledge. The press has already published and launched 4 titles over the past 2 years, as Andre has indicated. We are encouraged that we have already received unsolicited manuscripts from scholars who wish to publish with us. After today's launch of Achieving Nelson Mandela University with a question mark, 4 more books will be published in 2024. 3 of them are academic volumes, and 1 is a community-oriented publication. The next book that will be published soon in August 2024 is the book that is edited by our very own young Professor Babalo Makokwana, Professor Sipogazi Magadla, and Professor Atambile Masola. The book called Inyati Ibuzwa Kwabaphambili, African Women's Intellectual Histories in Southern Africa, is going to be the next book that is going to be published by this press. Thank you very much. And again, like Andre, I would like to congratulate all the authors and the editors that have gone before us in publishing in this press. Establishing a university press is, of course, a costly enterprise, but we have adopted a model which will make the MUP both viable and sustainable. Senators could be beginning to panic that I'm going to speak about the sustainability of the university. I will not do that today. Firstly, the press will operate from within the university and not as an independent entity with its own legal persona. The niche areas of the press will be closely linked with the identity and values of our university, as well as the strategic focus areas and research themes of our institution. Secondly, the Mandela University Press will not, at the outset, set up the whole infrastructure of an independent publishing house. We have instead entered into a partnership with African Sun Media. This will enable us to operate from a low-cost basis with controlled fixed costs and overheads. In this regard, I must extend a special word word of appreciation to the CEO of African Sun Media, Nirod Bramdo. Nirod, we thank you for joining hands with us, with Mandela University, as a strategic partner in this very important enterprise. We value the expertise and experience you and your team are bringing to Mandela University Press at the time when we need it. The establishment of the MUP directly advances achieving our Vision 2030 strategy, of which one of the focus areas, strategic focus area 2, talks to pursuing impactful pioneering research, innovation, and internationalization to address grand societal challenges and promote sustainable futures. I also would like to stress, Program Director, that in line with the vision and mission of our university to contribute to social justice and a more equal society, the Mandela University Press is committed to working with partners beyond the confines of our institution and to generating books, materials, and works that will advance and further the goals of knowledge, creation, affirmation, and resurfacing of genres that engage with the diversity of human experience and creativity, especially those that history has pushed to the margins of knowledge. To this end, while the press is intended to provide deliberate pathways for emerging and established scholars, and in so doing, advance the university's intellectual reputation and standing, it will have more than a purely academic imprint, as the chair has mentioned. It will also make provision for diverse outputs and forms of expression. As it grows, these may include platforms for oral traditions, community-centered work, artistic creations, gendered imaginations, Professor Kola, and so on. In this way, the press will aim to be inclusive in its outlook and to respond to our ideal of being socially embedded and of being in service of society. I have to emphasize, though, that this orientation of the press will have to stretch across the knowledge fields, from the hard sciences, engineering and health sciences, to the arts, humanities, and social sciences. Most importantly, the establishment of the Mandela University Press is a tangible step in our Africanization and reclamation aspiration. It will pursue an African epistemic project, clearly. This means, and here I am paraphrasing Paul Zeleza in his work in 2009, when he tells us that this kind of work will encourage work that does not simply write Africa by analogy. Rather, it will facilitate writing beyond the Eurocentric coding of our continent. In this way, we may be in a better position to do what Professor Kopano Ratele asked us to do. And I quote from him, he says, we need to better locate Africa and Africans in knowledge and to produce ideas that are disalienating for a meaningful life in Africa, I close quote. Earlier I mentioned the Lovedale Press. Our university has a formal partnership agreement with the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, and I want to also mention that our chancellor is also the chairperson of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation. So welcome, ma'am, here in that particular role. One of the key areas of cooperation is to explore the revitalization of the Lovedale Press. Our Executive Dean of Humanities, Professor Pamela Maseko, has been leading the engagement with the Thabo Mbeki Foundation and our sister universities in the province on this matter. But I would like to throw out a challenge this evening. Lovedale Press played a vitally important role in publishing works by Africans, as I've said, much of it in African languages. Is there not an opportunity to work with partners to identify works of great significance for the decolonization and Africanization project and make them available to a wider audience by publishing reprints under the imprint of Mandela University Press? Of course, distinguished guests, it is very important that we put in place systems and processes to jealously guard the integrity of the press in terms of management, governance, and editorial processes. No university press would be able to operate appropriately without the oversight of an editorial board. To this end, we are grateful to have assembled an editorial board of high repute and integrity. It is my pleasure at this stage to announce the 10 members of Nelson Mandela University Press editorial board. A lot of them are sitting in this room. The chairperson of the editorial board is Professor Crane Sudin, who is well known in the intellectual and academic space. He was the former CEO of the HSRC, but he's also a visiting professor here at our university. Mr. Nirod Bramdo, which I've mentioned, the CEO of African Sun Media, is in our editorial board. Professor Andre Kiet, the DVC for Engagement and Transformation. Professor Ta Chwara Manu, an emeritus professor of African Studies, University of Ghana. Professor Nomalanga Mkize, the director of School of Governmental and Social Sciences here at Nelson Mandela. Professor Azwindini Muronga, the executive dean of science here at Nelson Mandela University. Dr. Kwezi Mzilikazi, our very own, who is now the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Research, Innovation, and Strategic Partnerships at Rhodes University. Professor S.N. Nyek, Associate Professor of African Studies, Political Economy, Gender, and Queer Studies at the University of Colorado Boulder, USA. Professor S.N. Nyek is also a visiting scholar here at our university. Professor Shelley Ann Tate, she is a professor in Canada, research chair in feminism and intersectionality, Department of Sociology, University of Alberta in Canada. And last but not least, Professor Felisa Tibbets, from the USA and the Department of Law, Economics and Governance at the University of Utrecht. And she is also, they are also a visiting professor here at our university. Our warm congratulations to you all for being in this editorial board, and we thank you. And can we give them a round of applause? We thank you for your willingness to lend your time and expertise to this important initiative. I would like to sincerely thank all those who have played a role in bringing the Mandela University Press to life. Professor Kiet, Mr. Alan Zinn, indefatigable. Mr. Nirod Bramdo, that's a big word. These colleagues were the interim editorial board. Without them, we would not have been able to get to this point. And we also want to recognize many others in this interim period who lent their support to make sure that we reach this stage. Now, as I move to conclude, Professor, I will just say one or two things about the book launch. Let me briefly turn to the book we are launching this evening, Achieving Nelson Mandela University with a question mark. As you all know, South Africa's higher education sector is rooted in the country's divided past. From around 1997, a state-driven restructuring significantly changed the higher education landscape in our country and resulted in what is largely the current configuration of public universities as we know them, the 26 public universities in this country. Nelson Mandela University is one of the public universities that emerged from that restructuring process. It emerged as Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University in 2005, out of the amalgamation of the University of Port Elizabeth Technikon, and the incorporation of the Port Elizabeth campus of Vista. Don't start me about Vista. But it is part of our university, so we don't want to go to why was there Vista. We needed a Vista in our country. In 2017, this university was then renamed as Nelson Mandela University, as our chair has reminded us. This renaming was conceptualized as more than a marketing and a branding exercise for us. But it was an opportunity to reorientate the university, to reposition Nelson Mandela University as an engaged and socially embedded university that is in service of society, striving to be the academic expression of the values and ethos of its iconic namesake. This sense of endeavoring to be something greater imbues its strategy documents and public statements. You see it and feel it everywhere. This determination to achieve Mandela University serves, or it is intended to serve, and we try to do this in the book with the authors. It is strive to be an organizing principle and a lodestar. It is important in this regard to recognize the critical role played by the founding vice-chancellors of the merged institutions, now known as Nelson Mandela. I would like to single out the late Dr. Rolf Stumpf and Professor Derek Swartz for pioneering leadership, which gifted us and who stewarded the formation of the university that we now have. Hopefully, we have been able to project this through the contributions of the authors in the book. The purpose of the book we are launching today is to situate Nelson Mandela University within the contemporary historical moment from which it emerged and examine its subsequent evolution. Achieving Nelson Mandela University is an intellectual and scholarly reflection on where the university has come from and where it is wanting to go. My co-editor, Dr. Denver Webb, will shortly outline the themes and provide more information on the authors of the book. I am exceedingly grateful to Denver, whom I've worked with for decades, by the way, in different capacities, for his diligence and humanizing approach to the project. It was both a privilege and an honor to edit the book and to contribute in a small way to it. I also sincerely thank all the contributors to the book. In conclusion, it is our sincere wish that the Mandela University Press becomes an enduring symbol and manifestation of our commitment to being the academic expression of the ideals of Dalibunga Mandela. And that the book forms part of this launch will serve as a record of our journey so far as this university. It is therefore my humble privilege and my great pleasure to formally launch the Nelson Mandela University Press and the accompanying book, Achieving Nelson Mandela University. I thank you.
I also thought of standing tall, but then I've changed my mind, of course. Lizzie, thanks so much for that. We now have an officially launched press, colleagues, and an officially launched book. Please give ourselves a nice round of applause. Also, just as a note on knowledge fields, this year we will also host our first institutional public lecture on the sciences at the George campus, and we have also received our first proposal as an editorial board on a book within the hard sciences, which we are considering present. So, Mr. Samuels, the 12 organizing fields of SAQA, we hope to cover, publications across those fields as well. But before I ask Denver to come up, I just need to settle one matter here. I have heard in a meeting or two that somebody refers to the press as MOP. So now, we will have to settle that, colleagues. That is not allowed. It is disallowed. Either the MUP or you say Mandela University Press, okay? We are not going in the MOP direction. I'm not sure. I think it was Samira actually who was. Yeah, the MOP project, yeah, okay. It's a good thing for us, rather, to have the Mandela University Press, in its full title, or the MUP, as people would say. So fantastic on that score as well. So Denver, are you ready for us to present an outline of the book and some analyses as well? Colleagues, please welcome Denver to the podium. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I don't want to stand on that platform. It'll make me think I'm back in the late 70s and early 80s wearing those big platform boots that I used to wear. Good evening, program facilitator, honored guests, comrades and friends. In 1956, Nikita Khrushchev is reported to have said, "Historians are dangerous people. They're capable of upsetting everything." So as a historian here tonight, I'm hoping that I'm not going to upset everything too much. But it's a tremendous honor and a privilege, as the VC has said, to be associated with Achieving Nelson Mandela University, both as an author and as an editor, alongside Professor Muthwa. This book has been a genuine collective effort from a cross-section of authors from different backgrounds, disciplines, and generations. And I must pay tribute to my co-editor, Professor Muthwa. I don't know how she finds the time to do all these things that she does, and then do it with such grace and aplomb. I must also really pay tribute to the authors, most of whom are here tonight. This book has been a long time in the making. It got interrupted by COVID at some point. But I think the richness of the contributions in the book derives from the wide variety of academic disciplines from which the contributors are drawn, and the different methodological approaches adopted around the core themes. Now, the VC has already touched on the purpose and the context of the publication, so my task here is just to provide you with a concise overview of Achieving Nelson Mandela University. The book is arranged in 3 parts. Now, part A deals with the origins of the institutions that became Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University. In the first chapter, I explore the origins and pre-merger histories of those institutions that came to make up the university and locate them within their historical context and the intentions of the founders of those institutions and whether or not they actually achieved what they were intending to achieve and what influence these had on the merged university. So in a sense, what did they contribute to the DNA of Mandela University? In chapter 2, Shivani Pillay, who's sitting up there, Shivani, picks up the baton. People can see, picks up the baton and examines the organizational identities of the pre-merger institutions in some detail, as well as the political and cultural baggage that they brought into the new university. And amongst other things, she argues that as we move forward towards a Mandela University identity, we should not forget the histories and the ideological underpinnings of the foundations on which we are building. In the next chapter, Heather Nell, there's Heather sitting down there. She rounds off that section with an insider's view of the dynamics of the merger period organizational design process of amalgamating these disparate parts of the university into this one institution. The technical processes of the organizational design that unfolded during the early phases of the university's evolution contributed to the establishment of administrative and academic systems that, although they weren't without challenges, laid the basis for the more visionary work that followed. And part B then explores this further. It covers the post-merger transformative reconstruction of the university. And in her chapter, Denise sitting right here, describes the search for appropriate approaches to learning and teaching in the newly merged university. She examines the challenges of the transformation of teaching and learning and key interventions in this period that set the course for the university's academic project, including Derek Swartz's very influential 2011 Academic Heartland concept paper. In chapter 5, Andre Kiet and his young colleagues, Tinyuka Chauke, Hashali Hamukwaya, Patrick Ajibade, I hope I'm pronouncing the names correctly, and Neil Honeycomb, bring to bear critical insights on the transformation of the higher education sector generally in the country, including notions of transformative and transformational leadership, before focusing on approaches at Nelson Mandela University since the merger. And inter alia, they draw attention to the relative dearth of research on university leadership in South Africa, especially in relation to the demands of transformative praxis. In an interesting case study in chapter 6, Denise Zinn, together with Ilse Olkers and Alan Zinn, explore institutional culture and the very innovative institutional culture enlivening process, ICEP process, which consciously sought to construct a new institutional culture at the university. They make the point, amongst other things, that the complex process of transforming an institutional culture in a higher education institution requires deliberate interventions, is an emergent phenomenon as a result of a myriad of everyday micro-decisions, and is informed by the actions of people distributed throughout the institution, all of which needs to be guided by a clear vision, a set of principles, and desired behaviors. In the next chapter, Toko Mayegiso examines research, innovation, and internationalization at the newly merged university. She explores the implications of developing an enhanced research profile at a comprehensive university whose constituent parts included institutions that did not have a strong research emphasis and the strategic interventions that the situation required. Among other things, she makes the point that the new comprehensive university inherited an imbalance in research capacity in favor of the physical, biological, and engineering sciences. I don't want to provoke a debate from this corner as to whether that's still the case or not, but I'm noting some of the colleagues sitting there. In chapter 8, in what is both an analysis of student experiences at Nelson Mandela University and a future-oriented think piece, Lutando Jack, who's sitting down here, tackles the tricky question of what is required to achieve the university's aspirations of being an African-centered institution. He shifts the focus to both the student and the Africanization project, examining transitioning towards a student-centric African university. And he argues, amongst other things, that striving to be an African university in the continental and national context in which Nelson Mandela University is located requires continuous transformation and the deployment of transformative leadership. In the final chapter in this section, which examines governance at Nelson Mandela University, Thabo Magume, Edgar de Koke, our registrar who's sitting here, Joseph Bazirake, and Tlangalani Nyati provide an overview of the evolution of governance at the university, exploring the emphasis placed on sound corporate governance and the structural involvement of students. And amongst other things, and there are a lot of things, but I'm just picking on one, they conclude that increasing the level of student participation in university structures has, I think a little bit paradoxically, not resulted in meaningful participation, which leads to students' concerns being raised outside of formal channels. In the third part, part C, the remaining chapters delve into the must-fall protests and their impact and influence at Nelson Mandela University. In chapter 10, Sibongile Muthwa, by now I'm sure you know her, outlines the broad transformation of higher education since 1994 and highlights inconsistencies and unresolved issues that led to the student protests of 2015 and 2016, as well as the chronic instability in the sector that has followed. Drawing on her own experience, her account points to the importance of collective leadership and new ways of doing things. Then, Pedro Mzeleni. Pedro, where are you sitting? I saw you earlier. There he is over there. People also still describe you as our own Pedro and like our own Kwezi, even though you might be at another institution. Our own Pedro Mzeleni, a scholar and former student leader, provides a student perspective on the catalytic protests. He traces how the student movement found its voice in calling for a decolonization program for higher education and for South Africa broadly that entails the radical, systemic, structural, and institutional uprooting of all forms of coloniality embedded in the country's consciousness. In the next chapter, Lebogang Hashatse, and with Pedro again, and Wendy McCullum, bring a fresh perspective to an examination of the context and background to the landmark decision taken by the University Council in 2015 to insource support service workers following the End Outsourcing campaign by students and workers. And among a number of thought-provoking conclusions, they argue that given the history of South Africa and the historical mission of higher education in South Africa, the progressive underfunding of universities will not be solved by mechanistically cutting costs and outsourcing service functions and workers. Then the next chapter is written by Cheryl Foxcroft. Cheryl is sitting over there, hiding behind Lutondo. She turns the spotlight on learning and teaching in times of crisis. She provides a useful case study of saving the academic year during the Fees Must Fall protests of 2016, a project in which she was intricately involved. So much so she gained the nickname General Foxy, if I remember correctly. The conversion of the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium into a secure teaching and examination center stands out as a notable achievement whose lessons led or fed into responses to the COVID-19 pandemic a few years later. Her chapter highlights the significance of inclusive leadership and flexible decision-making in steering the university through a crisis. I think Mike, as the ED Finance, would have palpitations when he hears about flexible decision-making. But it's true, that's what got us through the crisis in many ways. In chapter 14, two vice-chancellors who've been at the helm of Mandela University in its most formative periods, Derek Swartz and Sibongile Muthwa, are interviewed by Crane Sudin, himself no stranger to the issues and challenges of higher education. Collectively, they reflect on the different themes of the book and what these may mean for achieving Nelson Mandela University. One of the strands in the story that emerges is how, again, leadership of the university since the merger responded to different crises and challenges in the sector at different times. In the conclusion, in what is both a consolidation of the discussion and a reflection on the future trajectory of Mandela University, Vern Harris, who's sitting here, who's also an adjunct professor at our university, I must say, returns to the intentions of the book and the key themes. In something of a provocation, he draws the main strands of the book together and extends the discussion on the purpose of the university of the future, posing a set of questions on the university to come. So I'd like to thank all of the authors for incredible work that they've done, and sometimes under difficult circumstances during COVID and so on. I also need to extend a special word of appreciation from the editors to Dr. Jenny Dupree. Jenny, I saw you earlier, right at the back. And to Ms. Nobubele Puza. Nobubele is also at the back there, for administrative and research support to all of the authors when the book was being planned and coordinated. Also to Dr. Jeanette Buerta. Jeanette is somewhere here. There you are, Jeanette, for technical support during the editing process and lots of other support. And of course, I also want to extend appreciation to the anonymous peer reviewers of the manuscript. I'm very pleased that Nerode Bramdor, the CEO of African Sun Media, is our partner, a strategic partner in the Mandela University Press. I'm not going to say MOP. Just like, if the Herald is still here, I really want to ask them to stop using NMMU in the articles, because when we changed the name, we said we want to be Nelson Mandela University or Mandela University, not NMU, but somehow they still seem to fix it. I hope they're still here. But so the same with the MUP. We're not going to say MOP, we're going to say Mandela University Press. So I'm very pleased, Nerode, that you are here, a strategic partner. We owe a special word of appreciation to you and to your team for the production of this book. I kind of suspect, though, that some of your staff may want to take long leave after engaging with us. But please convey to them we really appreciate their contribution in getting the book across the line. As I conclude, program facilitator, I would like to return to Khrushchev. I hope the book that we're launching this evening, Achieving Nelson Mandela University, will indeed upset things. I hope it will change how we approach the ongoing evolution of a university, how we assess the foundation that was laid during the merger process, how we understand the Africanization and decolonization project, how we approach issues of inclusion and exclusion and of institutional culture, and most importantly, how we view the future trajectory of Nelson Mandela University. In that sense, I hope this is a dangerous book. Like historians ought to do, it should challenge readers to question received wisdoms and orthodoxies, subvert myths and assumptions, and foment critical thought. Please read the book and decide for yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Denver. We will have to sort out the question of the question mark, and how we're going to read the name of the book, Denver, okay? So with that particular question mark as well. I just want to check whether Nanda is ready for us for the musical item, please.
Zabu ingomo emasimini ejabula amathole qibitheka wathi numama yakhala ingomo zabuya ingomo emasimini ejabula amathole qibitheka wathi numama yakhala ingomo zisanumcaba zisanimijagulo hlukuhlamako lehlambe mame khala umntwana khala unina khala izinja khala ingomo kwenzenjani zabuya ingomo emasibiri ejabula amathole qibitheka wathi numama yakhala ingomo zabuya ingomo emasibiri ejabula amathole qibitheka wathi numama yakhala ingomo zisanumcaba zisanimijagulo hlukuhlamako lehlambe mame khala umntwana khala unina khala izinja khala ingomo kwenzenjani Nibongotule everybody. Zabuya ingomo emasimini ejabula amathole qibitheka wathi numama yakhala ingomo zabuya ingomo emasibiri ejabula amathole qibitheka wathi numama yakhala ingomo zisanumcaba zisanimijagulo hlukuhlamako lehlambe mame hlukuhlamako lehlambe mame hlukuhlamako lehlambe mame. Thank you. Good evening all. My name is Nandem Zaidume, and I am here today with my colleagues, Anele Dama on keyboard and Ulibongo Ntuli on trumpet. Thank you. The song we just did, thank you. The song we just performed right now was Yakhala Ingomo by the legendary saxophonist Utata Winston Mankuku Ngozi. And the next song and final song we are going to be performing for you is called the click song, Gongo Twani, by Mama Miriam Makeba. Enjoy. Lama kaba kabimbol. Hakata makakata kakashwe zingqondweni. Lama kaba kabimbol. Hakata makakata kakashwe zingqondweni. Makaba kabimbol hakata makata kakoshe zingqondweni. Igqirha lendlela nguqongqothwane. Igqirha lendlela nguqongqothwane. Igqirha lendlela nguqongqothwane. Igqirha lendlela nguqongqothwane. Sebequbule gqithapha nguqongqothwane. Sebequbule gqithapha nguqongqothwane. Sebequbule gqithapha nguqongqothwane. Sebequbule gqithapha nguqongqothwane. Igqirha lendlela nguqongqothwane. Igqirha lendlela bathi nguqongqothwane. Igqirha lendlela nguqongqothwane. Igqirha lendlela nguqongqothwane. Sebequbule gqithapha nguqongqothwane. Sebequbule gqithapha nguqongqothwane. Sebequbule gqithapha nguqongqothwane. Sebequbule gqithapha nguqongqothwane. Lendlela nguqongqothwane. Igqirha lendlela nguqongqothwane. Igqirha lendlela nguqongqothwane. Igqirha lendlela nguqongqothwane. Thank you.
This is great, Nandi team. Thank you so much. I give them another round of applause. I think that the question mark after the title of our book is making us running slightly late because I have to refer to that question mark all the time. So Ellen, you must just bear with me, okay? I know that you're looking at me. So of course, I'm not going to ask anybody to cut their speeches, just to say that if we can stick to the allotted time, that would be great. So with that, please welcome Nero Bramdo, the CEO of African Sun Media, to the podium. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Andre. You know, it's always such a warm reception I get when I come to Gqeberha. My dad was born here, and my grandfather is an alumnus from the Native College of Lovedale and was the student editor, or the editor of the student newspaper there. So I also have a connection with that press. And we can talk about it offline on co-publishing with MUP. Okay. Okay, so greetings to the Chancellor, Dr. Geraldine Fraser Moleketi, the Chair of Council, Ambassador Nozipho January Basel, colleagues on the editorial board, and our Chair, Prof. Crane Sudin, who I believe is online, the MUP coordinator, Alan Zinn, and the co-editor of Achieving Nelson Mandela, Dr. Denver Webb, members of council and Senate present, editors, members of the media, fellow speakers. Before I talk, can I start with an anecdote? And I did warn Geraldine about this. So we were on an interministerial delegation to India to look at the advances in e-governance. And it was led by Dr. Esop Pahad, who was the minister in the presidency, and the Minister of Public Service and Administration, Geraldine, and Ivy Kasaburi, I think it was the three of us. And every day, as Esop is wont to, he would summon us at 6 o'clock, happy hour at the Taj Hotel, to hold court and plan our strategy. And I was there, and I was editing a press release with Geraldine's communications manager, Madoda, on the SATU strike in South Africa. And I tell Geraldine, isn't this an irony that my wife is a teacher and I'm editing a press release from her employer on a strike? And then she tells me, and Esop doted on my wife, and she tells me, no, you must tell your wife to go back to work. And so I phoned my wife, and I tell her, this is what the minister said. And she said, tell the minister to pay teachers more. So I thought I'd just break the ice with that. But I think this is indeed, excuse me for reading now, I think I'm not usually an academic sort, so this is a bit academic for me. So this is indeed a landmark day in the history of the Mandela University and for African Sun Media. In this partnership, we have remedied a historical imbalance and taken ownership of local knowledge production. In 1959, the Separate Universities Act was promulgated, quotes, to provide for the establishment, maintenance, management, and control of university colleges for non-white persons. The motivation behind the act was not so altruistic as it sounds. Much like other apartheid legislation at the time, the architect behind the legislation was the then Minister of Native Affairs, Dr. Hendrik Verwoerd, who rejected a call for equal education and argued, I contend that the Bantu obtains their education at the open universities are in most instances rendered unserviceable in furnishing social services because they no longer regard themselves as Bantu, but as members of an exclusive international brotherhood of intellectuals with no particular responsibilities to their own people. Adding to his voice to the argument was then Minister of Education Johannes Viljoen, who said of the academia that will emerge from black colleges, instead of becoming a leader and social asset, he becomes a traitor and a social evil. The non-whites are still too immature to accept the responsibilities concomitant with an independent university. Apart from that, unfortunate experience, some of them very recently, have shown how susceptible the non-white students are to undesirable ideological influences, which can so easily lead to riots and violence. You were certainly correct in some regard, as the historically disadvantaged universities were throughout their histories under apartheid at the vanguard of black consciousness and protest action and uprisings against the oppressive regime. But coming back to the idea of a university press, I applied for ministerial permission to study at Rhodes University, the only university at the time to offer journalism. And because my father was a listed person, I assume I was just denied. So I went to UDW and I went to study there and changed track completely and did a commerce degree, but still became a writer. So the point I'm making is that when I was there at UDW, I was asking, how is it that we don't have a university press, but Natal University on the Hill, the whites only one, does? So it made me question the intellectual gravitas of the institution I was registered at. And I asked myself, am I in an intellectual wasteland here in Durban? But fortunately for me at the time, Professors Bharatram were very highly rated researchers, and I'm privileged to work with Prof. Bharatram today on book projects. But then in the 90s, I did a newspaper article on a Professor Ved Prakash from UDW, and I must acknowledge Shivani, who's also an alumnus from UDW, came much after me, she's much younger, but she was there at the time. So then in the 90s, I was a journalist, and I did an article on a Professor Ved Prakash from my alma mater. Professor Prakash proposed an alternative theory to Einstein's theory of general relativity, which he called non-Einsteinian gravitation, or NEG. This is a theory that questioned certain limitations and inconsistencies in Einstein's theory, particularly with regards to quantum gravity and the behavior of gravity at very small distances. This is still a much used concept in modern theoretical physics. Unfortunately, the injustice of not being able to establish their own university presses has haunted historically disadvantaged institutions well into the post-apartheid landscape. Hamstruck by financial pressures and the challenge to claim its own identity and voice, the establishment of a university press was often shelved as a nice-to-have, rather than being at the bedrock of the global knowledge system. More recently, debates around the delegitimization of contributions made by members of groups who are underrepresented in academia suggests that there is a segregation of knowledge in terms of its value and legitimacy, such that it has been called an apartheid of knowledge. In the significant paper entitled The Apartheid of Knowledge in Academia, The Struggle Over Legitimate Knowledge of Faculty of Color, authors Banal and Villalpando raised the issue of epistemic injustice internal to academia. In highlighting the slow pace of transformation, Andre, in the higher education sector in 2002, the paper exposed the definite discrimination of knowledges along race and gender lines. More damning, their research pointed out an apartheid of knowledge in academia between those from dominant groups and those marginalized from the knowledge economy. The delegitimization of black scholarly research by ignoring or othering it was further fueled by the lack of basic infrastructure to publish research in their own names, identities, and brands. Aside from the economic impediments faced in the establishment and maintenance of a university press, maintenance of a university press, the publishing of research under more established former advantaged university presses was preferred with a perceived academic prestige, further demeaning research emanating from historically disadvantaged universities. However, the post-apartheid education landscape has afforded us a level of diversity in knowledge production, with contributions from those markedly different from traditional Western positionalities. There's an acute appreciation of the complex interplay between those knowledges brought to research from colonial historiographies and those that are post-colonial and post-apartheid. Again, this is a significant day, for importantly, we address that interplay between those that are committed to preserving the traditional modes of knowledge generation and dissemination, and those that look at the imperative of being socially relevant. In launching this university press, we hope to bring together those from academia and those from broader society, so that we may challenge the endemic apartheid of knowledge. Avoiding getting into positivism, I would safe to say that the epistemic encounters in which testimonial claims are systemically devalued through identity prejudice serves to further oppress and marginalize members from groups who are already in epistemically less privileged positions, thereby excluding them from properly taking part in the knowledge economy. Glass and Newman argue, problematically, in the higher education sector, such biases serve to further marginalize the voices and testimony of individuals and groups whose knowledge claims enter the knowledge marketplace, enter the marketplace of ideas at a very substantial disadvantage when they are being received, evaluated and assessed, and assimilated into frameworks and paradigms determined by, for the most part, hearers from dominant groups. Testimonial injustices are committed when, because of identity prejudices stemming directly from the overarching positivist paradigm, people's claims are dismissed as mere intuitions, vague feelings, or the like. The opinions, views, and knowledge claims of individuals and groups who are subjected to identity prejudice are not solicited because it is presumed that have little to contribute and they do not possess the required knowledge, and consequently these individuals or groups are effectively silenced as their testimony is barred from consideration in the formal knowledge production process. Interesting, speaking at the launch of a last book, and I wrote my story anyway, Black author and UCT academic Barbara Boswell said, "I do not believe in giving a voice to other people. Most marginalized and oppressed people already have voices. They do not need to be given a voice. What they lack are platforms and opportunities to amplify their voices because of structural barriers such as racism, sexism, and poverty. Consequently, it is easy for those in power to ignore marginalized people, even when they are speaking very loudly and very clearly for themselves." I'm just going to quote Bawa again, sorry, from the same Mellon-funded research. He says, "The university presses ought to be built and defended, if for no other reason than to ensure that we make a small but indelible dent on the geopolitics of knowledge, so heavily shaped by the Western metropoles." I want to just sum up in my conclusion on a wish list, if you wish, on the terms of reference for the press. I think the value of university presses to the university community, to the broader world of readers, and to society itself is best stated to include these items: preserving the distinction of local cultures through publications of works on the regions where they are based. And I must come back to a challenge that Professor Muthwa gave Andre, Alan, and I when we were concocting this idea of Mandela University Press. And she says, "I don't want a lofty scholarly press. We must be socially engaged and we must be doing things differently." And so in answering that, I think we need to, in our terms of reference, include those directives from you. Secondly, sponsoring work in specialized areas of scholarship that do not have broad levels of readership needed to attract commercial publishers. Thirdly, helping connecting the university to the surrounding community by publishing books of local interest and hosting events for local authors. Extending the reach and influence of their parents' institutions and generating favorable publicity through news coverage, book reviews, awards, and exhibits at scholarly conferences. And finally, testing the validity and soundness of scholarship through peer review, thus maintaining high standards for academic publication and adding value through rigorous editorial development, professional copy editing, and design for worldwide dissemination. Our goal today is to undo the shackles of the apartheids of knowledge foursquare. We want to be part of a project of social innovation and the expansion and diversification of the academic community. In this project, we would stress social inclusion, listening, and creating spaces for knowledge production to draw in diverse voices, views and approaches, and positions into this imprint. In doing so, we can alter the way in which knowledge is produced, assist in breaking the apartheids of knowledge, and move toward the realization of a higher education sector which works directly for the betterment of society and consequently acts as a positive and effective force in bringing about social justice. Again, this is a seminal, epoch-making time for the histories of both African Sun Media and Mandela University Press, and may we nurture research and knowledge and stay true to one of the Mandela University credos, creating equal opportunities for all students to serve for the well-being of the nation. I thank you and take good care.
Thanks so much for that, Nirod. Well said. And we'll work in, Alan, some of the principles into the terms of reference as the board and its work, of course, also develop. Thanks for that. Nirod is spot on with regard to the orientation and philosophy that the Vice Chancellor and the University Council has set for ourselves with regard to our strategic what one would say, slant towards the question of academic and university publishing as well. So many, many thanks for that. Colleagues, let me first make a quick announcement. I hope that there will be still some time for people to engage the editors of the book when we reach the end of the program. And for those online, please zap your comments into the chat. It will be relayed to my phone, and I will share it if there is sufficient time for that. And then, of course, for those of you who have a particular question or interest in making a comment, please also just note that down. And so if there is sufficient time, I will make a slot for that. Vern, it is now up to you. And Vern, will be talking about the University of the Future, is one of the narrations that he also provided in the book towards the end. And for those of you who will get a copy of this, please, take some time to also go through that particular chapter of Vern. So Vern, over to you, please.
Good evening, everyone. Pleasure to be with you. I've been given an impossible task to talk about the University of the Future in a few minutes at the end of a long and very rich program. I'm reminded of what my wife said to me when I was persuaded by Prof. Muthwa and Andre and Denver to write that concluding chapter. What she said to me was, "You love that university far more than is good for you." And, So I promise you, Andre, mine will be about 4.5 minutes. All I want to offer is a very brief provocation. Of course, Madiba had a dream for our country, a dream of a just society. And reading all these chapters, it's clear to me that in a not unrelated way, all the contributors to this book have a dream for the university. A dream for a decolonized, Africanized, transformed university. Needless to say, the Fees Must Fall movements loom large in the book. Those movements shifted the terms of engagement, shifted the ways we talk about the university, the language we use. In the same way as for our country, turning the university of our dreams into a lived reality seems almost beyond our reach. But we are called, and for me it is the call of justice, to keep reaching for it. I don't have to remind this audience how Madiba ended Long Walk to Freedom. 1994 could be regarded as the end of a long journey, but it was also the beginning of a longer, more difficult journey for our country. And that sensibility for me is embodied in the introduction to the book by Prof. Muthwa in Denver. I just want to read one sentence from that introduction. The Nelson Mandela University frames itself as a values-based university on a journey to become something else. Some interventions and decisions appear to have worked, others have been less successful, unquote. What they are describing for me is a journey of transformation, even a journey to transformation. And for me, in one way or another, all the chapters in the book testify to an embrace of an identity formation at once future-oriented and inspired by the idea of a university beyond itself, a university still to come. This orientation to the future, this understanding of the work that we are doing now as unfolding out of the future, I first learned from that body of thought that we call deconstruction. So Gayatri Chakravorty Spivak and Hélène Cixous and Jacques Derrida. In deconstruction, freedom has meaning only as long as we are striving for it, building it, importuning it to come, working for it. In the moment that we think we have freedom, that we possess it, in precisely that moment we lose it. And we can say the same of justice, of democracy, and of the university to come. The call in deconstruction is for a radical hospitality in relation to these big ideas. A hospitality to what is coming, to what is yet unknown, and a hospitality especially to what is being othered by prevailing relations of power. Why I love this university is because I believe it has a leadership which embraces this idea of hospitality. And so let me conclude by just reading the very last paragraph of the book. Although a long path, my wife would say at this point, quoting yourself really is unacceptable, but although a long path has been traveled on the transformation journey by the university, there is still a long way to go. Arguably, the journey to becoming the something else that Prof. Muthwa and Denver talk about in that introduction never ends, like that long walk to freedom. Those of us in the university, not only this university, but in the academy, as well as those of us who simply care about the university, and maybe especially those of us who are intent on imagining the university, the transformative university, have to be busy creating the space into which the university to come might emerge. And if it emerges, we will always already have had to be working on the university to follow the one that is coming. For this is the work of those who want to belong to the university. And their reward is coming to understand that the university belongs to those who are working in this way. In the same way that the legacy of Nelson Mandela belongs to all who care about the just society of his dreams and are working to make it a lived reality. And, dare it be said, who are open to the possibility that the just society to come is beyond Mandela. Thank you. Inkosi.
Thank you so much for that, Vern. Beautifully articulated and inspirational in a sense as well. So I'm going to ask our Chancellor, Dr. Geraldine Fraser-Moleketi, just to share a message with us. I assume that I need to get this step back in you.
Thank you very much. In breaking molds, you also embrace what you need that will assist you in doing so. In this instance, it's a bit of height here. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. And we've listened to so many speaking about something quite exceptional through this particular book, but also through the Mandela University, about the Mandela University Press. I'm going to take it, Prof. Keet, that I don't need to go through all the acknowledgements and all. Vern didn't do it, so I won't do it either, you know. So allow me to add my greetings as we celebrate this exciting occasion and this particular launch. As the Chancellor of the Nelson Mandela University, seminal events such as this historical launch of the Mandela University Press, together with a new homegrown publication that traces a fascinating journey of becoming and continuing, elicit tremendous pleasure and pride, and I think rightly so. The launch of the MUP states boldly to its peers nationally and globally that this is a university that's firmly focused on the fullness of scholarship, on the works of scholarship and the fruits of scholarship, and on a level of engagement and inclusivity that gives expression to Mandela University's strategic aspirations. The 2021 to 2025 strategic plan of engagement and transformation portfolio, ETP, within whose ambit the MUT resides, declares, and I quote, "We argue there's an inherent connection between engagement and social and cognitive justice leading to co-agency, the co-creation of knowledge and action, close quote. The MUP is a core pillar of that co-agency, the co-creation of knowledge and action. It epitomizes Mandela University's commitment to the reclaiming, regeneration, and production of African intellectual scholarship. Knowledges in a variety of formats that characterizes its authenticity and traditions, especially in the Eastern Cape region, which despite its hugely rich history and contributions to the shaping of South African society over centuries, has had to endure a paucity of attention, resources, and advancement. The MUP, in collaboration with its sister institutions in the Eastern Cape regions, aims to address these shortcomings in a sustained and meaningful way. But distinguished guests, there's another reason why I'm so happy about the launch of the MUP and why I am delighted to lend it my support. It is my honor, and it's quite an outstanding privilege, I think, to be the Chancellor of the Mandela University and the Chairperson of the Board of Trustees of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation. It so happens that I've worked with both these figures over decades, and this is also the period before 1994, but even post. So as the chairperson of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, which has as a key project the restoration of the 200-year-old Lovedale Press, which Prof. Muthwa has mentioned in her address. At the entrance to the Lovedale Press in eDikeni, in the Eastern Cape, is a plaque on which is written, and I quote, "The earliest record of anything written by any Bantu-speaking African in his own language in South Africa was made at the small printing press at Old Lovedale," close quotes. These are the words of the famous Xhosa author, A.C. Jordan, who published many books through the Lovedale Press. What a legacy, what a national treasure. Bongani Kupe of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation said of Lovedale, and I quote, "An institution that has been in existence since 1823 carries within it a history and heritage. In other words, it carries the story of our people in its totality. Lovedale carries a rich history and African heritage in education, religion, culture, and literature," close quotes. So I'm sure, having listened to the earlier inputs, can you see the consonance with the rationale for and the aims of the MUP? As Prof. Muthwa has mentioned, our university recently entered into a partnership agreement with the Thabo Mbeki Foundation to assist with restoration of the Lovedale Press. As we see it, this is strategically aligned, and this is a strategically aligned opportunity and indeed responsibility to work with our sister institutions in the Eastern Cape, to resurrect and possibly disseminate the works of those African greats such as W.B. Rubusana, S.C.K. Mkai, and N. Jabavu, and so many others, intellectual African activists in their own right. The Mandela University Press aims to tell the story of African intellectual scholarship, even as it generates more of the same. It is, from my perspective, a collaboration made in heaven, as they say, one that is fully deserving of our collective support. It is quite simply the right thing to do. We owe it to our region and to our nation, our continent, and indeed the world, to tell the stories and the histories that for too long have waited to be heard and which are yet to be written. And the MUP continues the traditions and grows the narrative and art forms as we move into new contexts. I know that I speak on behalf of so many people this evening when I say it is therefore with much pleasure and pride that we extend our support and heart and warmest well wishes to the Mandela University on this launch of the University Press and publication. Our sincere appreciation goes to all who made this happen, and we trust that the Mandela University Press will go from strength to strength to be a publishing beacon in this region and further afield. So congratulations, and I thank you.
I was just wondering, Cheryl, you don't want to come up here because the step is already here. Okay, this is now wonderful, colleagues. We have had some amazing reflections on the press and, of course, on the book as well. And we are moving towards the end of a great evening, of course. But for now, we have like 10 minutes. If anybody would like to make a comment, ask a question, whether you have checked, whether you have taken notes when Denver was presenting, you want to speak to some of the authors here as well, or perhaps whether one of the authors in the house also would like to say something about the process as well. So we have like, yes, please, Pram?
Thank you. I just want to know how challenging it was to edit a book where there were several editors, and how long did it take? Thank you.
Oh, Visi, you are Denver. How challenging Denver? Hoarding cats, I suppose. Edited compilation is not easy, but please.
Thank you very much. You know, I'm relatively inexperienced in this business, so I have nothing to compare to. But I don't think it was challenging in that sense. It was a very interesting and exciting project. And I think the number of authors was really very helpful, because it brings such diverse perspectives and different methodological approaches. But in terms of time, the final manuscript, I think the delay was in the research process because of COVID and other things, and the writing. But the manuscript, I think, was first submitted to the publishers, to the printers in February. And then it went through the process of reviewing. It had been through internal reviews first within the university, and then it went through the review process with anonymous peer reviewers, and then through the copy editing process, and then it was just interaction with the editors from there. So basically from February to now, I think is the answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Denver. Any more comments, questions from anybody else? Pram, you can use that as part of your media release. I know that's why you asked the question. I know my colleagues. Anybody else? Okay, please. Jean? Thank you very much for that, John. I think that Denver, VC, you also asked Denver to respond to that question. Shall we just focus all the... Okay, Mr. Samuels?
Can I just add a comment?
Yes.
I neglected to mention, but when people were speaking prior to me, I was reminded of a line in the book, which I'd like to repeat, because it bears testimony to what we're doing here. Magokwana, as part of an overall shift to deploy African thought and idiom in her broader sociological project, links Muthwa's leadership orientation to the principle of Inimba, the birth pains. The loose translation of Inimba is interpreted here as, in quotes, life-giving, life-sustaining, and life-preserving. Thank you.
Thank you, Niro.
Thank you very much. Andre, when I was listening to Denver and, and the VC and other speakers, I was very interested in saying I must actually just buy get the book and so on. So I wanted to ask, for those of us that will be traveling, is it possible to have an e-version and also audiobook perhaps? Is that available? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe. Niro, what you can do is, let me check in there with Pabalwa, and then so that we can have a cluster of responses. Apologies for that. Niro, prepare yourself for the question of Joe, and then Denver, if you perhaps want to respond to Jean. Or VC, you must, Vice Chancellor, you have the authority to delegate. I'm just alerting you to that.
Thank you, Chair. Congratulations to the university, the authors, and the editors for putting together such a thick, necessary book. But I just wanted to to ask the question in terms of the title of the book in itself and the shared understanding of Nelson Mandela University, and this question mark that you have put at the end. Do you think that there was a sense of a shared understanding amongst especially the contributors and the editors of the book of what this question mark or whether the becoming looks like? Maybe you can just help us in deliberating on what the becoming looks like and would have looked like in the question mark.
I think that question is for the Vice Chancellor. No? I also have to be fair and distribute these responsibilities. So, colleagues, okay, right, let's close it down there because we are running a bit late. Niro, can you respond to the question with regard to e-version and then also audio version, perhaps?
Okay, right now, there is no audio version as yet. One of our projects on sustaining the isiXhosa oral tradition is to come out with an imprint for audiobooks, and then it may fall under that. But we usually wait for the print launch, official launch, and then about a day or two thereafter, it goes live on all our platforms, which includes Amazon, Google Books, Take-A-Lot, JSTOR, all of those platforms. So it will be available in print and e-version. Okay.
Thank you so much for that, Nira. Denver, accessibility and packaging in terms of the volume of work at play?
No, Jean, I mean, honestly, we hadn't thought about that, and I think that's something we need to take as some homework and think about it. I mean, that's a good point that you've made, and I don't have a ready answer, except to say, I think we need to take that on board and we need to think about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Denver. Vice-Chancellor, please take on the question that Babalwa was raising. The question about the question mark, as Ben was saying.
Well, perhaps I should start by saying that it is my belief that the authors understood why we need to have a question mark, because this is, the university is something that you look after, that you nurture, that you deepen, that you share, that you don't own. So the journey is ever open. So we do what we do with deep integrity, and I would like to believe that we should do it with a lot of respect, because we are carrying a legacy, we are carrying the heritage and inheritance that will have to be here in 100 years. So our idea of a question mark is to leave it open and and I think Van, in his last 2 paragraphs that he read, he sums that up very well. His take from the book, that those that are deeply invested into the role of the university to advance humanity, they need to play an open-ended game and do the best using knowledge as the canon, and then to leave it open and to leave it lingering in the air so that others can take the baton and take the university forward. So that was the thinking behind the question mark. Thank you.
Okay. So the question has been answered there. Okay, Babawa, thank you very much for that. I must now close the. If I open now to you, then you will be the last one, okay? And then I'm going to hand over to Nobo. Please, because you are ex-deputy vice-chancellor. Did you also need this step later? Please, Denise. Denise?
My apologies, Program Director, and my apologies, VC, because I didn't want to have to follow you. I thought there were more questions. I wasn't listening properly to the Program Director, which often happens.
I will speak to Ellen about that later on.
But I just thought that Babalwa's question was such a provocative one. And as someone who was one of the authors, I need to just say that we didn't know this was going to be the title of the book. But I can see why it's the title of the book. And I want to just perhaps add to what VC said and what Vern has said and others, that it's actually an invitation to the reader. Because this book is not about the authors. Yes, it's about the author's perspectives, but the actual audience is a much larger much more significant public. And by posing it as a question, we leave it to the readers to judge whether or not what has been contributed in this book contributes towards the achievement of a university, Mandela University, and all it is, as Vern says in the back of his, not the back, in the last chapter, it is about what it is for, how we stand for Nelson Mandela. And so thank you for asking that question, because I think the answer lies with everybody in the room. Thank you.
Thanks, Denise. A very, very valuable intervention there as well, so many thanks for that. And I think that one of the reasons for that question mark was also so that you can read the title like that, Achieving Mandela with a question mark, Bababo, okay? So colleagues, I'm going to ask there you are, Nobu. I'm going to ask Nobu to just do the vote of thanks on behalf of all of us. So many, many thanks for spending the evening from my side. So over to Nobu, and after Nobu there will be refreshments, okay, served outside.
Thanks so much, Prof. Colleagues, if we've listened carefully from the start of the program, there have been a lot of thank yous that have gone around, which in part shortens the work that I need to do. So I am asking you to allow me to simply add to the many thank yous that have gone around the room today. In particular, colleagues, I'm going to ask you to allow me to focus more specifically on the people that have made this particular event possible. And I'm going to start first and foremost with everyone who's here today in the conference center and everyone who's joining us online. Thank you so much for supporting this event. I also want to extend a special thank you to everyone who was part of the program as well, and that includes a whole range of the speakers that have shared their gratitude and their congratulations for us getting to this point as the university. I've been asked as well to thank the Communication and Marketing Department for the role that they played. I'm going to thank as well the various engagement and transformation portfolio entities, specifically or just including then the Center for Women and Gender Studies, Krishet, and CANRAD as well, for availing themselves to assist the events team. To the various entertainment as well, from the jazz band in the foyer to Nande and her team as well. Thank you to the conference center staff and to the catering department, to the protocol office and the protection services, to media services. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all the work that they do. And a special thank you as well to the Archives and Exhibition Center. And before I let you go, colleagues, I just want to remind you that Achieving Nelson Mandela University, with the question mark, the book is going to be available and is still available at the special launch price outside in the foyer for 400 Rand today. And it's going to continue being available at the university shop as well for the special price of 400 Rand. But otherwise, you can also get it at Fogateers for 435. We are also selling today on sale in the foyer as well. We've also got the D-Word, Perspectives on Democracy in Tumultuous Times. That's edited by, I saw Prof. Christie's here as well, Simpiwe Dube and Zwelethu Jolobe. I know that they might be available as well for autographs, signatures. Critical Social Work Studies as well is also going to be available in the foyer. So colleagues, thank you so much for being part of what Ambassador Patel has already termed a celebratory milestone event. And I'm hoping that you travel safe, and good night.